Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there, it's Dr. Gemma, and welcome to episode 106 of the new series of the Cognitive Podcast. That's the formal way of saying, gosh, we've been around a long time. And this week I had a lot of evidence of that, and this is a really happy episode, although it's probably going to be long and jam-packed. And okay, let's get rolling. First of all, I hope everybody had a simply wonderful Thanksgiving. If you'd like to see our simply wonderful Thanksgiving, you can in the show notes at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. Remember, cognitive is C-O-G, the word knit, then I-V-E. Okay, or you could just make that easier, go to our group on Ravelry. And it should all be there as soon as I publish these show notes. We had a wonderful feast. The master of the feast himself is featured. He really got the turkey right. He covered it in cheesecloth because we didn't have a lid that would fit over the roasting pan. And he basted that puppy, and man, it's the best turkey he's ever made. And I'm talking 35 years of experience here. I am sitting here sipping hot tea as we talk. It has gotten cold and gray outside, which is lovely. My teacup has a Greek letter psi on it, and it says, keep calm and study psych. I love this teacup. Makes no sense, but it was when that fad of keep calm and do something or other was going around probably 6 or 7 years ago now. So, meanwhile, let's see what else. I have a picture of one of our napkin ring holders. I found these 2 years ago. I don't know where. They're just little foxes, and their tails are tucked behind them. And then there's just this branch growing out behind them that forms the ring for the napkins. We only have 2 of them. But I love it. My husband put them out for himself and myself. My son got the pewter cat ring. Maybe that picture will get in next year since we've got 3 of those puppies. You can also see our keto desserts, which were homemade brownies, homemade chocolate chip cookies, and, ooh la la, a homemade no-bake pie filling, pumpkin cream cheese. We, of course, used it as pudding because I don't react well to the keto crusts at all. So we just had it as pudding. And of course, in the British style, I just poured cold, heavy cream over it. Or, for you Brits, double whipping cream. Double heavy cream? I forget what you call it. I mean the radically thick cream, okay? We're talking big time. Americans, first they whip it till it's stiff. Then many of them, like complete self-destructive people, whip sugar into it. Like, what a way to kill a good flavor. Who needs sugar in your whipped cream? But Americans do these things. I can't explain it. But we don't. So that's why it looks sort of like mushy yellow stuff in the background. The recipe is in the notes for the show. I will get back to that. What else? In the warm thanks, Sustainable Living, no G at the end there. Thank you. She gave me a link for expensive, but I suspect highly effective moth traps. After Christmas, you betcha, we'll be investing in a bunch of those and putting them in the walk-in closet and in the Hubs's closet. What a great idea. The thing about moths, you're going to say, but Gemma, did you see the price on those moth traps? Yeah, you know what moths did to my sweater collection, my unknitted hand-spun yarn collection, my husband's sweaters? Let me tell you something. If you go in there and you buy 10 of these things for like $200 and you don't get moths, it'll be worth it. Getting mothed is such a downer. And once it happens, as we can attest, it will keep happening. We keep trying to control it, and there's that one place you missed, and then the little boogers come back. But we're doing pretty well. We haven't had serious moth hits in a long time, but his wool sweaters were just waiting on this top shelf, and I knew it had to have happened sooner or later. Okay, but thank you, Sustainable Living. That was really valuable. The link is in the show notes. COVID is on the rise in Southern California. LA County's talking about going back to masks. I don't understand it. I'm standing in the post office today, and I realize I walk in and there's a lady with a little kid. Nobody's wearing masks, but they still have the 6 feet apart things on the floor, but you can only fit 2 people in the main post office in our little tiny town. So I step outside the glass door. Woman comes in, stands right behind me. I mean, seriously, a foot away. And so I didn't say anything. I just reached into my bag and I pulled out my mask. If you're hearing whining, that's blankets passing through. The dogs are not yet off daylight savings time. So even though it's about 3:49, they think it's 4:49 and they're going for their dinner, which should be at 5, but dogs, they cheat. At any rate, so I'm in the post office. I put on my mask. The woman backs away a foot. And I thought, good for you. Do what you want. Do what you want. I'm not going to breathe you. I got an N95 on. But I'm also thinking, here we go again. What if I'm getting chemotherapy? What if I'm severely immune compromised? What if I work all day with COVID-infected patients? Any of these things are possible in my career and in my stage of life. Let me tell you something. After 30 years as a psychotherapist, you just can't fix stupid. And it's not that hard to wear a mask. I've really lost a lot of sympathy. Now, I will say, when I put the mask on, everybody sort of backed away from each other. It was like this visual reminder. But I did not make eye contact or even turn to look at this woman because I knew now it's going to become about power if I do that. Like if I turn around and look at you, I'm basically staring you down like, hey, I got a mask. Do you think I might be sick? Do you think you should back off? And so the trick is not to make it about power, to just stand there and ignore her. Simply put my mask on and say, do what you will. I'm not going to get involved in you or you're crazy. So, she backed away a few inches. All right. Get your vaccines. And here's the other one. I say this every week about 6 feet apart and wear your masks and wash your hands. But the reality is, look, guys, I've got allergies badly enough. I don't want flu. I don't want a cold. I don't care what you think about COVID. What is crazy about wearing a mask at this time of year, particularly if you're 62 years old, and diabetic, asthmatic? I don't get it. Okay. But considering I'm in this really redneck town, it was just taken in silence. Because I'm also in a redneck town full of old rednecks who are probably starting to have issues with the same thing. Boy, she is out there just carrying on. All right. Meanwhile, climbing off my soapbox, what is on my hooks and needles, you may be wondering? I finished the Hailing Frequencies hat, and I got a bonus from the universe. Now, you may remember, this is a custom yarn from Dizzy Blonde Studios in DK Superwash for me, although she also had it in fingering, and still has it, I imagine. And this was done in honor of Nichelle Nichols, the late Nichelle Nichols, who, of course, was the original Lieutenant Uhura in the original Star Trek in the 60s. So it's primarily the red of Uhura's uniform, with splashes of black and yellow, and it was supposed to be, what do they call it? The arranged pooling, so that you can use certain kinds of specialized patterns. I didn't bother with any of that. I just knitted it. But I got a special treat. When I started doing the decreases, it formed the badge of Starfleet. I'm not making this up. I didn't do this intentionally. Look at the picture. I'm knitting along, and I'm thinking, why is some, alarm in my head going off with happiness? And then I looked at it and said, oh my God, it's the insignia they wear on their uniforms. It just pooled that way. Yellow on the outside, black on the inside, surrounded by the red. I just feel like Ms. Nichols reached out and said, thanks for remembering me, live long and prosper, or some such thing, and put that on my hat. Well, that hat is now labeled with one of my tags that says JM me facit, that is the Latin for JM made me. Because, if you're going to put tags, custom leather tags on your hats, you really got to use another language, right? Sign would take too much space to fit all the signs for that, I think. At any rate, try finding that and then having somebody custom make it. Heaven only knows what you'd get. Still, there it is, my second language, Latin. And there it is. I put a picture of the insignia. That is a complete accident. I am completely delighted. I take it as Ms. Nichols giving one last salute to someone who respects her work. Thank you. And there it is. And I don't know. Coincidence is coincidence, but you got to admit that's a pretty weird coincidence. I choose to live in a universe where beautiful and magical things happen. Call it coincidence. I don't care. I have seen so much weird stuff since I became a psychologist. This would be small potatoes on that scale. In the meantime, no love for the lane splitter skirt, which is odd because I'm beginning to realize I could do that and just whip through it and have it done in like a week, if that long. But no love on the lane splitter because I am deeply in love with the Lady Eleanor shawl, which is now about 32 inches long. And I am in the middle of skein 6 of 11. So it looks like it's on track to be about 66 inches, I would think, without the edging. I don't know if I'm going to do fringe or what I'm going to do on it. I'm still working that one out. I am also back in love with the Don't Know Yet. I've always been in love with that. I'm still making blocks. I'm still crocheting blocks. That will go on till at least December 8th. But now I am organizing rows. Because I can. Because I did all the darker yarns and now I'm finishing up on the lighter yarns. And the way I'm looking at this, it's going to be the bottom is dark going to lighter as you go up the pattern. So the first row was a black frame. Whether this will be entirely framed in black, I doubt, but I'm working on that, on how to integrate the black to make it a sort of quasi-frame with other colors spilling out of it. So you may remember, I seamed together the first row because it was going to be that black frame, and then I realized I have all the dark colors, the dark maroon and the dark blue, the deep indigo, and I thought, well, that's going to be good for 2 or 3 rows, really. And so, sure enough, I had pieced together the second row. So the entire bottom row is seamed together. The second row, I have 3 more blocks to seam, and that row will be completed. Then I get the party of putting it down on the living room floor and clipping it together to make it fit, and just working my way along it, making each block fit with every other block. This looks like it should be easy enough to do. This is kind of a seaming experiment for me. I am using a kind of mattress stitch, an invisible stitch on this. You can see it. I'm not perfect at getting this in the outer edges. What happens is one side is the right side when you use this stitch. The other side is the wrong side. I'm not being picky. If you can see stitches, I don't care which side you're seeing them on, because I don't really want to do that. I don't want to make a specific right side and wrong side. I'm perfectly happy to allow the viewer to just see little stitches here and there. I just think it adds to the charm of the piece. So there is a picture of me sitting there in one of my homemade corduroy dresses. You ever want to make a great dress? Seriously, really easy, drop-waisted, fine wale corduroy. Easy, easy, easy. Anyway, I'm sitting there in that dress. And over my shoulder, I have row 2, which is seamed at that point, with my needle in my mouth, because, safety first. Just don't startle me or I'll be eating that thing. But it is really happy because I have realized as we are heading around the bend into December that I am well ahead on this project, and it is really fun to be finishing blocks while being able to piece together blocks at the same time. And, when you've got 300-something blocks, that is not as hard to manage as you would think, that you got a lot of everything. So that's great. So hopefully I will seam those first 2 rows together, and then I will pick up the next row, which I think is going to have black edges, and then will be the maroon and the dark indigo as I'm moving up. And so I have all of those colors finished. So I should be able to do that row quite nicely. Also, getting 2 rows finished, that's pretty happy. That's 10% of the project, considering I didn't plan to start it till after the new year, seaming it. And now, of course, the calendar's moving up because I don't need to do blocks for 365 days. And also, I'm ahead on the blocks anyway. I may well be at the number I need right now. I have extra blocks. I'm not going to worry about it. The idea is I'm just going to keep right on making blocks, because if I have extra blocks, I have more choices in the colors and the color distribution. I also realized I found the ball of black yarn and I thought, oh, I've got enough black squares. No, I really don't. And so I am going to probably use up that ball of black yarn, because I do want to have framing squares in black. So we'll just see how this goes, but it's a kind of build as you go pattern. And there's no wrong answer. There's just however it works out. No love on my embroidery. Can you spell Romuald? No love on the wrapped in tiny chains. The wrapped in tiny chains. Crochet is hard on my hands while I'm doing so much ASL. Tonight, our final exam drops. We're supposed to do it Wednesday night, but I'm hoping to just do it. Well, I don't know if I'm going to have time tomorrow, but we'll see. At any rate, I'm preserving the backs of my hands for ASL. And the final is this week, and then I believe next week or the week after, I do a 10-minute chat with her as a Uber final, as the end of the finals. And then I'm done the class, which means that hopefully I will let the backs of my hands heal a little bit, and then I will just, I hope, really cruise on the wrapped in tiny chains crocheted cardie. It's a very easy project and should be fast enough to finish, but it will be nice because the timing is such that I will get the squares done for the Don't Know Yet blanket and then be able, I hope, to really just cruise through the wrapped in tiny chains and finish it. I have 2 sleeves, and the sleeves, the beginning of the sleeve is actually partway down the upper arm, so they're not long sleeves at all, even if I make them out to wrist length. And then I have patch pockets, and I'm finishing the second front. And again, these are all really brief. This should really fly. So I'm hoping I will get that done. Will that be a Romuald project? Could be, but I've got until like February 6th. Blankets is just walking around whining and complaining at me. Just try to ignore the pathetic whining. She's not starving. At any rate, I am hoping that I have Romuald between Christmas and New Year's off. But I'm also hoping for this kind of extended Romuald session that will go out till February, and then from there, hopefully I will be on new projects. Now, the Romuald, you say, oh, that has led to such happiness. Today, I just got the urge. I said, I really have to start planning my Romuald sweater. Now, Romuald, I thought, I have a pile of blues left over, and I have a pile of greens and peaches. And I really said, like, oh, I did a Romuald in green last year. I'm a little worn out on green sweaters. I need to make a blue sweater. I also keep thinking I need to make a brown sweater, but that's another story. Because the Romuald sweater is a scrap yarn sweater. And I would like to invite you to knit along with me, to do a Romuald sweater as a knit along. Am I organizing anything formal with prizes and goodies? Nah, I'm just asking you to consider the possibility. So to me, what is a Romuald sweater? Well, first of all, it's your scraps. Romuald is a way of resting at the end of the year. If you're, I think, Norwegian, and I'm not at all. I just love this idea. So it's a way of resting in the quietest time of the year, just around solstice, and catching up and reading books and sipping tea by the fire and letting the snow fall. All of which is possible here in Southern California, since I'm in the mountains at about 3,200 feet. And to me, a Romuald sweater is use up your scraps. Don't waste. Just get in there and use up your scraps and kind of let what happens happen. Because I think that's a gloriously fun part of knitting, to just let these things happen. When do you do your Romuald? I don't care. I think I'm going to call Romuald for me is going to be December 1st to February 1st. Now, my official Romuald will be Christmas Eve probably to January 2nd. That's the time I have off, I think. Let me think. January 1st. Yeah, I have off January 2nd anyway, because that's my normal day off. So in that time, around starting Christmas Eve, I'm going to actually start knitting my Romuald sweater. That's the game plan. But I decided I could start planning it now because we're approaching December 1st. Okay. So I said it's either the greens or the blues. Now I also have some other nice hand spun in browns, in grays. I've got a really nice selection. I think I've got some purples left. But I thought, no, I am just in the mood for that blue sweater. So I went looking because I thought somewhere in here I've got a bag of blue scraps. I know I do. And I found it right at my knees, right under my main desk in my study. And there it was. And you can see a picture of it in my show notes, except there's a lot more because a wonderful thing happened. I came out in the living room here to record this episode, and I looked at, we've got this big hassock that goes with our big couch, and I lifted the lid. It's got storage in it, and I found a time capsule in my living room. Back in 2014, yes, 2014, after the Cognitive Fiber Retreat, which would have been Cognitive 6 out of, I think, 8, I got this couch as a Mother's Day present. And I said, this is mine, so the storage space in the hassock must be mine as well. It's a big hassock, huge square of a thing. So anyway, apparently, I just packed it up with all sorts of projects. And one of the things in there were the TARDIS socks I tried to make for Twin Face. I made one sock and said, well, the band where it says police box is just too tight. Well, there it was, a finished sock. And I looked at it, I said, yeah, but the rest of it fits. It's a little long in the foot. I put it on. It has stitching for an afterthought heel. But I actually put it on like a tube sock. It fit me just great, frankly. And I thought, I don't think this puppy needs an afterthought heel. And I think I could wear this puppy. And then I found all the yarn that goes with it in TARDIS blue and white and black. And I said, holy Moses, you mean I'm one sock away from a pair of Doctor Who socks? You betcha, baby. And then I said, I got more than enough blue here. So I thought maybe I just make the other sock in the same pattern, but without the band that says police box. Or maybe I just switch to bigger needles for that band, and I will be happy with it. Can you tell where this is going? I said, I'll finish that sock, and then I'll go back to the first sock. And I will hack that baby apart with scissors, right through that band where it doesn't fit. I will pick up the stitches below the band in the blue, and then, assuming that the second sock that I have made with larger needles on that band has succeeded, I will just knit upwards in that pattern and fix it. And I will have the TARDIS socks, but they will fit me. Now, one issue, the first sock has been sized for Twin Face, who has a bigger foot than mine. You don't really think I'm going to let this worry me, do you? There's that little waist yarn. You know, I could just pull that puppy out and put a heel in. I could just pull that puppy out and graft the sides together and have no heel. One sock, a tube sock, which means I can make the other a tube sock or not. I can do whatever I want. It's my socks. I might even rip out that first sock. And yet I'm looking at it going, but I like it. It's actually very neatly done. Okay, so there we are. I'm in the time capsule. Other things in the time capsule. Yup, more blue worsted weight yarn. Yay! And even so, I found I have Cascade, I think this is Quattro. And I think I must have bought it in about 2008 would be my guess. I've got enough of that stuff for a vest, which is what I believe I bought it for. I think I was going to make, I think it was called the Varsity Vest, a square-necked vest in fitted knits, in the book Fitted Knits. And I thought, I don't really like that vest. I think I'm just going to make my own vest out of the pistazza and just get all this blue out of my stash. Sorry, it's not pistazza. I think it's Quattro. Although I also found a lot of blue pistazza. I've got to figure out what the size is on that. So I've got all this old Cascade, you know, back when it wasn't utter junk and was made in America and really nice stuff. Yeah. But also it may just all get sucked into the beautiful Romeo sweater. We will see. And then the time capsule got even better because I realized I was looking at project bags. And there was a project bag from Cognitive 6 to Tehachapi, California, October 11th, 2014. And I thought, bonus! I've got a project bag from 2014 that's clearly labeled. I love you. And I found a zippered pouch. And I found some embroidery scissors and a measuring tape. Bonus! We're going to build another little pouch because I like to carry those around with me and store them all over the house, so I always have a utility pouch around. And I got the project bags. I think I got two of them that say 2014. And I got the TARDIS sock. And I got the blue worsted weight for the Romule. And then it got even better because I'm looking at a book on Nordic gloves, mittens. And you know what? they're in sport weight, a lot of them, which is my least favorite yarn weight. Now, well, apparently in 2014, I was really big on sport weight. I've got dark brown, I've got dark blue, I've got medium blue, it's all wool. Oh my goodness, I've got white, I've got black. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to make mittens all spring long, so the next project after the Romeo looks like I'm going to start making up those Nordic mittens. Stay tuned. Now, just when you think, what is this, Gemma, Christmas Day? Yes, apparently it was, because then I said, well, I should look at my hand-spun bins in the back. I'm not really sure what I've got back there. I have breathtakingly beautiful hand-spun blue yarns in, wait for it, sport weight and worsted weight. What have I done to deserve happy karma like this? I can't believe it. I'm going to empty the stash bin in the living room, which has been a project way at the back of my list because I'm really working on emptying my study of yarns. But I'm going to empty those. I got sensational yarn for my sweater, way more than enough. And I've got the greens for the next sweater, which is probably going to have blues in it. And I've got sensational hand spun. And I've got yarn to knit all the mittens because I want to knit a lot of mittens. Why? Because we have a bin in our living room, and that is the hat and mitten bin, because my son loses these things all the time. And I just decided that the thing to do is make a whole bunch of these things and unattach myself emotionally. Just say, I got a spare skein of yarn, it's going to be a hat or mittens, and then just put them out there and let them, create havoc. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Gemma, when I first met you, way back at the first Cognitive Fiber Retreat, you made him mittens, and then you connected them with a band that ran through the arms and the back of his jacket. I know. And we had those mittens till he outgrew them. You know what? He's 16. You just can't humiliate him like that. But also, he's not one to wear mittens because he goes to school down at a school that is 2,000 feet lower in elevation than our farm. So at school, he's warm all day. But I figured, well, we need mittens for working around the farm. And we do. The beloved husband will not wear mittens or hats. Why, you ask? It's a guy thing. I think he figures if he puts a wool hat on, he's admitting that he has a little hair loss up there. Now, he didn't lose a lot of hair. He looks really good. It's really very much in the back center. But, they're vain about this thing. They really are. Anyway, so I'm filling the bins with hats and mitts. And I'm going through my hand spun. And then I thought, well, what is the pattern? Well, obviously I'm going to base it on the brick. But, I looked at all these little bits and bobs of different colored yarns, and I realized it may be time to get heavy-duty serious with Fair Isle. And I'm looking at Mucklestone's book and Starmore's books that have Fair Isle motifs. Now, what I'm really thinking is tiny, tiny motifs, except across the base of the neck and the arms, I think I want a running stag. But I got to really work on that to see who I've got enough yarn, because I think the background yarn is going to have to be the Quattro, which is actually, looks like it's 3 different colors plied together, a lavender, a blue, and a pale green. And that would be the background, which means I have to have enough in a solid color to be the stag, and will it even show? I don't know, but we are now planning the Romeo sweaters. So the living room time capsule, what a wonderful thing. Hand spun, what a wonderful thing. I just feel like I am dancing in magic karmic territory. Having said all this, if you'd like to see all my resources for yarn, my list is still in the show notes. And that leads us down to my own Dizzy Blondes, my spinning section. Now, I still have a sort of natural solid merino from Morro Bay Fleece Works. I'm kind of stuck in the middle of that on my eel wheel, my big electric wheel, so to speak, because I have a bigger one, an Ashford, but I prefer the eel wheel to it, believe it or not. And there's a project stuck on the Ashford that really needs to be spun off and cleaned, but that's another story. So meanwhile, I'm not working on the Merino from Morro Bay, which I should because it's fantastic. And when I get hardcore about spinning again, whenever that happens, I will. But I am working on a fuzzball of Minerva daily. I did do a short video, a 20-second video on my Instagram of me spinning that, what it looks like using a drop spindle, to try to encourage people to realize it's not that terrifying, actually. It would take a charka or a drop spindle because it's so fine, but it's very doable, actually. You may remember that I had the 1 ounce packet of silk hankies from Redfish Dye Works, and at one end it was blue and purple. It went into green and yellow. That's why it will look like very different colors if you look at my pictures, but I finished that whole ounce. It just filled my drop spindle, which has an extremely long spindle on it for that reason. This is, I believe, a 1/4 ounce, 1/2 ounce spindle. It's really, really light. Balsa wood. This was made by Yorkie Slave years ago. I don't think she's still making spindles. It's very well balanced, cup, hook, and all. And it's great for exactly this kind of work because this was only 1 ounce of silk. As I was spinning it, I was more and more liking what I was getting because it got just thick enough. It started out extremely thin when the spindle was very light. But as I accumulated silk, you can understand this, right, if you spin, that it got easier to get a slightly thicker cobweb. And that's what this is. It's all cobweb. I love it. But also, I worried like, if the spindle gets too heavy, I'll get a very different spin. I'll get a very different single. Come on, man, it's only 1 ounce. The hankies, total, there were about 12 of them, only came out to 1 ounce in weight. I mean, how heavy was the spindle going to get? 1.5 ounces? And so I spun the whole thing on it. I am so happy. I continued over the picture from last week because I really like it, where I took a picture of it. And on the right side, you can see it pre-draft, kind of compressed. So I did a lot of finger drafting on these hankies. So you can see one of the hankies fluffed out, and then you can see it spun on the spindle in between the two. I really like that picture, but there is also a picture of the finished spindle, and I did wind it off onto a toilet paper roll that kind of threw itself at me yesterday. Weird things go on here on the farm. And I was so happy about that. And it's huge. It's huge. I don't know how many yards it is, but it's a lot. I would think I've easily got, close to 100 yards. That's hard to believe. And I don't know. I'm very optimistic. But it was a huge amount of single. I am extremely happy about this. I pulled out one of the braids that I bought from Pearly Shell at Stitches SoCal, and I'm looking at it because it's already got camel hair. And so I don't know now, should I just ply Minerva against pure silk? I don't know. I'm also looking at Shetland shawls. I bought myself a used copy of Cheryl Oberle's wonderful book on shawls. It's kind of ethnic shawl making. And Cheryl's just a terrific designer, and she is not afraid of the big stuff. These are like 2,200 yard lace projects. I'm so grateful to get it. I'll talk about it later. But I'm thinking, I may start a Shetland shawl. Shetland shawl is like a square in the middle with a repeat design. And then you pick up the outer edge and you knit on a long edging, I believe. Elizabeth Zimmerman talks about these in her book. And Meg Swanson has done a bunch of them, of course. And I just remember I had Folk Shawls is the book. I had Cheryl Oberle's book years ago, and I think I gave it away or sold it. I can't imagine why, because in those days this would have intimidated me. Now I am just drooling over the Shetland shawl. And I was sitting there all week thinking, what was that fantastic book I had with all the folk shawls? And of course it's called Folk Shawl. I just went back through my Ravelry library. Can you believe it? Sometimes it's the easiest solution. So I did order a copy from a used book provider. I got it for like $4. I am a happy camper. Stay tuned for that. But we have a long way to go on spinning Minerva before we'll be ready for that. On to the strategies. We were doing Dear Man, the interpersonal strategy. We are on the A of man. And I want to separate the A of the word dear. That A stands for, it stands for assert yourself, but the best resource I was reading on it just basically says, say what you want. A is where You look at yourself, say, what am I asking for? And you develop a statement. That is the A of dear. Assert your desire. Why am I talking to you? I want you to do this with me, for me, or I want you to know I'm doing this, or whatever. Okay, that is the first A. The second A in man stands for appear confident. Yeah, do you hear overlap? You're not going to get anything in this world if you weeble and beg. Now, I grant you, there are those situations. Everybody gets into a jam and you end up begging for something. But I am American, so this will sound very American. But the reality is, you just don't get things by looking ashamed or guilty or wrong or as though you're asking for something unrealistic. So I don't mean, one of those phony do good, feel good, yes men type of self-confidence people, Joel Osteen or whatever. I don't mean that. What's his name? Robbins? I don't know. I don't mean like get out there and like, you're a winner, you need to do this. I'm not talking about that. That's kind of phony and we all know it. That I think some people get away with that and some people do it and some people have the wealth or the lawyers behind them to pretend they're important. But the reality is, if you're asking for something, long before you get to the point of asking it, you need to figure out, is it realistic? Is it fair? Is it reasonable? If it is, that's how you present. You appear confident. You don't want to give off the vibe, I'm trying to cheat you, this is not reasonable, I'm very weak, and even if you give this to me, I may not be able to use it the right way. You don't want to give off that vibe, okay? If you believe in something, you believe in it, and you learn to put your feet under yourself, stand up straight, look eye to eye, keeping your chin level with the chin of the other person or parallel to their level if they're taller or smaller than you. The idea is your chin shouldn't be up, your chin shouldn't be down, your eyes should be looking straight into the other person's eyes. You should look confident and calm. Oh, Gemma, you don't understand. I can't do that. Sure you can. I am here to tell you, it worked for me. A, appear confident, rehearse it, practice it, but watch yourself do it. Hear yourself do it, because you're not going to appear confident until you believe it yourself. Wow, this is like my pep talk episode. Well, I'm just so high on the time capsule in the living room and the Happy Thanksgiving. Fluffy books, pretty much the same ones are still there. I am working my way through the series, the Beatrice Hyde Clare series, and I just finished A Treacherous Performance, which was kind of a weak entry. So I've moved on to the next one. I can't even tell you what it's called. Nefarious Establishment, something like that. At any rate, I have not made any progress on Deaf Again by Mark Drolsbau, and I'd like to. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I finished watching Extraordinary Attorney Woo on Netflix. Wow. There's all sorts of problems trying to address autism. What is it like for a conspicuously presenting autistic person in society? It's a huge project. They're not going to get it right. Why? If you use an actress who is autistic, the question is, are you now parodying them or mocking them with all the things that are getting raised? And are they going to be aware of the differences? I don't know. It's an interesting question because they did not use an autistic actress. I have to tell you, someone who deals with autism on a day-to-day basis, you're not going to mistake her for autistic. She gets it wrong. But she gets it wrong in ways that highlight what is actually true. That she makes her character walk in a very unusual way. That's very common. It's not as exaggerated. It's often kind of bouncing. She really doesn't get it right based on what I've seen. But she's pointing it out by getting it so wrong is the best I can say for that. She struggles. Some of the symptoms she's presenting, I don't think she could be an attorney. However, watch the show. Because they start with that question, how far can you go? And what would it be like if the rest of the world accepted autism? There are problems with the way they ask it. She's a genius. She has eidetic memory for legal documents. Let me tell you, not every person with autism wins that big. However, watch the show because they take it all on. They take it on. What does it mean that she is this? What does it mean that other people are uncomfortable around her? What does it mean that the courtroom is uncomfortable with her present? What does it mean that she is making discoveries that she had never made about how other people are viewing her? What does it mean that she's a genius? What does it mean that she functions with disability? How does she compare to other people who function with disability? What exactly is disability? Is it just difference? When does it shift into I am very different to no, I'm actually functioning at a bit of a loss and I need a lot of help? All of that gets taken on. All of it. And other questions, much more subtle, get taken on. Like, this is a character who grew up with autism, and in early episodes we see how in her childhood she was treated differently. But a later episode takes on, what are successful kids treated like? And what are the geniuses being treated like? And that's not too good either. Now, they're raising some really good questions about how children are raised in general. So it takes on everything, and it takes on what is compassion. And at the end, I'm not going to ruin the ending, but what you get at the end is there's a lot of stuff going on in society outside of autism that is crazy, that is wrong, that is vicious, that demands love, that needs support. At the end, it's a striking statement for the individuality of each person, and that you have to let people find their place and you have to help them find it. It's the subplot of the male attorney who sees her as competition is very, very interesting. And they don't even sell him out. I thought, he's going to be oversimplified. And at the end, they suddenly complicate him. I can't recommend this enough, but you have to hang on through it. I tend to nitpick episode by episode because I'm a trained critic and that's the way I think. But I have to say the whole of the series is much larger than the sum of its parts. It is very much the sum of its parts, that you need to think of all of it. You've got to be thinking about things you saw in the first episode when you get to the very end. The Jeju Island, the Jeju Island episode is one of the most masterful things I've ever seen on television. It's so beautifully done. And the ending on the airplane is so beautifully done. And there's so many just amazing moments in the series. That should be something I really like. Something I really like? Yeah, put a lid on it. Yay, the no-bake pumpkin pudding or pie filling. I put the recipe. It's a photo of the recipe. So you may have to download the photo and really try to enlarge it a bit. This is as easy as it can be. A can of pumpkin, pureed pumpkin. I used from Trader Joe's 15 ounces of organic pumpkin. And I just stuck it in a big bowl with an 8-ounce brick of very defrosted cream cheese, a stick of butter. He said a cup of sugar substitute. I used half a cup. He said, I think cinnamon and, hello blankets, I forget what. I just took 1.5 teaspoons, a half tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice that I bought from a very good dealer. Threw it all in there, pinch of salt. Threw it all in there, and you can put it in a blender, you can put it in a mixer bowl. I used a hand mixer. Mixed it all together. Ooh la la, and then you let it set. Oh, it's so good. Oh, whipped cream. Yes, a cup of whipped cream goes in there too. And he's got you whip the cream in a separate bowl and then do all this other stuff, then fold it in. Oh, nonsense. Put it all in one big bowl and whip it till your hand is tired. Came out great. I guess it would be stiffer if I bothered to whip the whipped cream separately. I didn't. I whipped it until it got thick and then I added the other ingredients. This is fantastic stuff. The blather, you've heard most of the blather, and that's good because this is a long episode. We are finishing up ASL. I have the final this week, which I have not even studied for. And I have the final chat next week. I have to motivate myself. I did buy the materials and sign up for ASL 2 next semester. We'll see how that works, but it doesn't start till the first week of February, so I'll get a break. The pup date, we are still struggling to get Queenie housebroken. She now hides and pees, and she tends to pee as she runs. She's not the kind of dog who stops and squats. It is quite remarkable to see. I've never owned a dog who did that before, but I'm not sure anybody owns Queenie. I think Queenie owns all of us. But everybody's walking nicely, and it is time to take Captain and Minerva in to get their shots. So hopefully I'll get to working on that project. The hub state, he's doing fine. The eyes are good. The blood pressure is good. He's working with my son. We're getting through the first semester of my kids' school. They're doing a lot of home study to keep my son caught up in Japanese and calculus. And they're doing fine. We're hanging in there. Thanksgiving was absolutely wonderful. We just stayed at home. My husband cooked. I stayed in my study all day and I spun. I had to get through those hankies. I was so allergic to the strands of silk flying through the air and getting up my nose. It's just been a relief. I'm still trying to sneeze it out of my sinuses. When I lie down, I especially get nailed at night, but eventually I'll clear it out. So that is great. So I sat in there, I seamed, I crocheted. I should have called friends and I didn't. I just was tired and I just rested a lot, to be honest, while he cooked. I would emerge, clean the kitchen, which was easy. He didn't make a lot of dishes and he was cleaning as he went. And then, after dinner, we only cut as much of the turkey as we needed. So after the dinner, I had a major job just stripping the turkey and clearing the table off while he basically did dishes. And then he came over and packaged all the food. I stripped the rest of the turkey with him. We still have turkey tomorrow night, turkey masala. I think tonight is salmon. And, so good. He made a shepherd's pie the next night. He made a complete keto gravy using almond flour. And, I can't even tell you. We had keto stuffing using keto bread mix and keto chips that I got online, and everything was so good. The stuffing was so good. The whole meal was keto. My son had some, I can't think what they call it, Mexican rice that he made from a kit from Trader Joe's, but otherwise we had turkey and keto stuffing and keto gravy and acorn squash. Oh, so good. And broccoli. Oh, gosh, it was such a feast. Cranberry sauce that is keto. He put sugar substitute in it, and I can't eat cranberries. Oh, what a feast. What a feast. And then the shepherd's pie the next night with the leftover cranberry sauce as a condiment. Oh, it was so good. Just so good. And we're still feasting on the turkey, and so are the dogs. And, of course, I did take as many of the bones as I could fit in the Instant Pot, filled it with water, cooked that for an hour at high pressure, let it cool overnight, strained it the next morning, and now we've got a few gallons of broth in the freezer. And so I am set up. I have pork broth and chicken broth and turkey broth. I'm set up for winter soup. So Thanksgiving was fabulous. And you know what I love about it? I'll forget it in a week. That I'm so grateful for the uneventful events, for the times that we're just happy together and no big thing is happening. It is a beautiful thing, let me tell you. So the Rome Yule break is on the calendar, Christmas is a Sunday, so I probably will be working the 24th, but I'll bet half my patients don't show up. So roughly December 24th through January 2nd. And we are on schedule for the Grand Canyon, June 5th through 9th at Bright Angel Lodge. And Sunnybank, tentatively, August 17th to 21st. We'll see how things are going. If you'd like to, hook up sometime in Romuald just for coffee or to meet, absolutely. As for me, I'm going to keep going to deaf events and knitting. I just want all the deaf people to recognize me when I walk in the door, even if I don't talk to them, so that when I am better at talking to them, I feel familiar to them. It's true. Psychologists, we're dangerous. We have strategies. Minerva gets the last word. Minerva's last word would be thank you. Thank you. I am thankful for my listeners. So is Minerva. She knows she has a fan club out there. I am thankful that a year later from my last Thanksgiving thank you. Minerva is alive and well because she really tried to suicide with eating all that string last January. I am thankful to see her still with us. Yeah, we're paying off the loan, but you know what? It was so worth it to have her here with us. You can see her. She is in her nice warm spot. That is like the hottest spot in the house all day long. It's against the front wall of the house in my study. Just curled up, sleeping her sleep. You can also see her owning my command chair. That is the captain's chair in my study, which she is the captain. Thank you. Thank you from all of us here at Quail Dance Ranch. Thank you from the whole crowd. Jubilee, the frightfully old alpaca, and Roxy Pony out in the front corrals. Thank you from the dog people, which would be Blankets, who as of this time is probably pushing 15, and heaven only knows, Captain, who's now over a year, Queenie, who just passed the 6-month mark and has been declared an adult by the other dogs. They now steal her food instead of sacrificing all their food to her. It's really weird. It's like they knew when her 6-month birthday went by on November 10th. But thank you from the dog people, Captain, Queenie, and Blankets. Thank you from our Minerva, 4 years going on 5. Thank you from the beloved and the beloved son and me. You are a big part of our life. You know, you are not a huge number of people. You are just a little core group of the true believers still hanging in here since 2008. I'm so grateful for you. I've always said I would record this podcast whether anybody listened, but that's a little bit of a lie. I am grateful so much for your responses, for your likes, for anything that you do to show you are following Cognitive. At the end of this, I should put an ad for one of the wonderful vendors we met at Stitches SoCal. I'm not going to because I'm over an hour right now. I will save that for next week. Let the last word be thank you to all of you. Thank you also for taking care of yourselves through these hard times. Remember, we are a community. And, you know, we are witty, humane, and intelligent. We are the listeners and the recorder of Cognitive. Thank you so much. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.